a lot of the inflation being passed through because companies are trying to make up for lost profits. But the question is, beyond the diagnosis of the problem, how are you yourself as a company, very large company, global footprint, what are you doing to stay ahead of the curve, and what can you share with our audience here?
Sure. So I think few things. Supply chains, anyone who's managed supply chains will tell you it's always complex to manage supply chains, and supply chains don't like disruptions, right? So to me, I think for the last maybe many decades, supply chains have been optimized around efficiency and cost and just in time and stuff like that. But now we are optimizing supply chains around resilience. So I think as organizations, we're trying to see how can you build resilient supply chains, because disruptions happen all the time and you cannot be vulnerable.
So is JIT changing? Has just-in-time changed to some other term that you would like?
Yeah, because just-in-time is great if everything works perfectly, right? But even during the pandemic, supply chains within India were disrupted. If you had a supplier in Maharashtra and you wanted something in Odisha, it couldn't reach you, right? So again, the point which Sanjeev made is important. I think there's greater, if you look globally, everyone's looking at China plus one, right? Because they don't want to be vulnerable to one source, however cheap it is. Even within India, you're looking at how can I indigenize, how can I localize. Even within localization, can I have suppliers closer to where I am? I think the auto industry has done this very well for decades, right? So you have vendor parks, you do whatever. So I think organizations are seeing that the cost of business continuity is something which is very impactful, and we've been reminded of that over the last couple of years. So that's one thing. Second is technology. I think companies who embrace technology have been able to respond to this crisis much better, because this crisis has basically accelerated you into the future. And companies who are better prepared for that by investing in technology have been able to demonstrate greater resilience and agility.
I'm interrupting you here. Do you see any evidence of not large organized sector players like you, but medium and small enterprises managing to catch up on technology? Because in other conversations that we have, I sense that there is a gap of resources, the amount of money, and their own capacity to absorb technology.
So yes, to some extent you're right, but I think the fact that India as a nation has invested significantly in technology, and there's a technology backbone which is being created, I think is great. Because if SMEs, there are many world-class SMEs in India, and they are also realizing that if you really want to be a world-class SME, you have to embrace technology, because you also then need to be plugged into global value chains. You need to be able to cater to the needs of global customers. So I think there is a greater understanding and appreciation that technology is an opportunity rather than a cost or a threat in some sense.